All right, good afternoon. Chris here with the third installment of something that we call The Mix, where we're going to kind of recap a little bit about the weekend, this past weekend at Ridge Point Church, and then kind of some things that are going to be happening in the coming weeks. And so we're excited that you decided to take part of your day and kind of just check out what's going on here. So JJ, seriously, what are you doing, man? We're live on Facebook right now.
I was on YouTube. This Susan Boyle, she's really talented.
You're a little bit behind there.
Oh, my bad. That's the old video. I was you get on one video and you go to the next one and the next one, and who knows where you turn to. Just kidding.
If that was a suggested video, I don't want to know what you were watching before that. So
I wasn't watching YouTube at all. It just kind of popped up. But here's the thing: we did mention yesterday in church actually that. There are just some big time wasters in life, and we didn't even really know this. God kind of orchestrated the whole thing. But as we kind of use that as an introduction of what we're going to talk about, over at RPC Kids yesterday, that's actually what kind of their big thing was how to take care of your time and guard your time. So it's kind of neat how God segued those two things together.
Right. That's cool. And by the way, I don't know if you know this or not, but RPC Kids actually has a group that meets on Wednesday nights as well. They just started up last week. It's specifically for elementary kids, so not all ages, but specifically the elementary age kids. And they meet on Wednesday nights. They get started at 6:30 and they go to 7:45. But it's just kind of a little smaller group setting than what they do on Sunday morning, where they get to have a little more in-depth discussion. And maybe this week they're going to be talking a little bit more about that whole idea of wasting time. So.
Absolutely, Chris. Speaking of wasting time, are there anything, I mentioned yesterday YouTube, but are there any other time wasters that you can think of in your life?
Well, probably for me, one of them is Facebook. When you're just scrolling through Facebook and then all of a sudden somebody's live on Facebook, so you got to stop and watch it, kind of like what we're doing right now.
Kind of like this right here. Although this isn't really a time waster. This
is true. Profitable. There's good content here, but if you're supposed to be doing work at work right now, you might better wait and watch this a little bit later on. I'm just saying.
Or at least kind of keep the earbud in so the rest of your coworkers have no idea what you're doing.
That's true. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what's coming up this week. In fact, one of the things I think that we absolutely have to talk about is this coming Sunday is something called Status. And Status is, if you haven't been around Ridge Point very long and maybe you haven't experienced this, but Status is an opportunity for the staff and some of the other leaders in the church to talk a little bit about kind of where God's taking us next and just kind of where we feel like God's leading us as a church, and just an opportunity for us to have a little more in-depth discussion than what we can do on Sunday morning. It's an opportunity for them to ask questions. So we would love for you to come out and join us. It's not just that, though, either. We're actually going to eat together. We're going to get started at 5. The church is going to provide chicken and drinks. We're asking you guys to bring a side and or a dessert. You don't have to let us know what you're bringing. Banana pudding would be a good option.
That'd be awesome.
So I'm just saying. But bring a side and or a dessert and share that with everybody. And we're just going to have a good time together. Then we'll actually do the meeting. We usually do a couple songs. And we're going to do communion as well to finish out the night. So it's a nice night to just talk about kind of where God's leading us. So it all gets started at 5 o'clock. So if you haven't let us know that you're coming, please let us know that. You can actually email me, chris@ridgepointchurch.org. Let me know that you're coming and how many people you're bringing, just so we can plan the chicken. And also, if you have kids, young kids, we do have some childcare that we provide during the meeting. That's for ages 3rd grade and younger. So if you need that, you can also let me know that as well, chris@ridgepointchurch.org, and we'll make sure that that's taken care of. So that's right around the corner, but there's another big event right around the corner.
Yeah, right after that. So this coming weekend is Status. We have some really cool information to share. In fact, if we could peer right over my shoulder, which we're not going to do, but just over my shoulder, we actually had a meeting last week where we detailed some of the events that are coming up, some cool things to share. So Status is this coming Sunday. The following weekend, that Friday night, October 20th, is the 10th annual Bloodhound Barbecue. Now, we've been talking about this. It seems like we've been talking about this for about 10 years, but it actually is.
It's because we've talked about it twice.
Twice now. But the date was changed because of Hurricane Irma. But the Bloodhound Barbecue is now almost here. This is one of the biggest events we do all year long for the faculty and staff at Auburndale High School and their families. It's a big deal. The staff gets T-shirts, and there's a DJ and giveaways and all sorts of stuff this year, especially to mark the 10th anniversary. Now, we did have some people sign up for the initial version of Bloodhound Barbecue that are not able to volunteer at this coming one, October 20th. Okay. Some scheduling things got in the way. So we do still need a few more volunteers. And so if you want to volunteer, we're actually asking you to wear one of our green Life is Better Together T-shirts, which Chris always has available back at the back of the church on Sunday mornings. But because we need some more volunteers, because we want some more volunteers, I'm actually going to do this. The very next person that emails me that isn't already signed up to volunteer for the barbecue, but say, I want in, the next person that says that, send me an email at jg@ridgepointchurch.org saying that you want to volunteer, and mention that you saw this on the mix, and I'm going to give away one of our T-shirts for free, Chris.
Okay.
Just to be able to
just so
support
you know
what we're doing.
I'm going to bill you for that, okay?
Chris is going to bill me for that, and that's okay. I got it.
All right.
So Bloodhound Barbecue, October 20th. There's two shifts, one from 4:45 to 6:15, and the other shift is from 6 to 7:30. You can sign up for one or both. And we definitely want you, if you can stay, hang out for the game, wear your green Life is Better Together T-shirt. Bloodhound Barbecue, October 20th.
All right. So that's the stuff that's coming up. Let's talk a little bit about this past weekend, about yesterday. So, we're in the series called Finding Your Way Back to God, and we're in week 3 of it, or we were in week 3 of it. We're actually talking about that in our groups this week as well. And our big idea yesterday was this idea that we can't reach for our future while kind of keeping a firm grip on our past. Kind of unpack that for us. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times in our life, first of all, the first part of that is that we have to realize that for every one of us, we have a future, that God has a specific plan and purpose for our lives. I think sometimes we get hung up and think, well, I've made mistakes, I've messed up, and do I really have a future? So the first thing we have to understand is that for each one of us, we have a purpose, a sense of calling, and there's even though we might look at people's lives and say, well, they have a special calling, and that might be true, the truth is we all have a special calling. And so the first part of that is realizing we have a future. But then the second thing is I'm not going to hold on to my past with such a firm grip that I can't reach for the future. And a lot of times, especially in the context of this particular message series, we're talking about bad actions in the past. For the prodigal son, his story was I made some bad choices, and I can either be comfortable with my bad choices, because a lot of us fall in that rut, and we say, man, I'm comfortable being right here, and even though this would be better for me, this is safer, and I prefer safe. And so whether it's I want to let go of my past bad actions, or sometimes we've seen people who had success in the past, and they want to live on the merits of past successes and not continue to strive for the future. And so it really is saying whatever the past is, whether it's a good thing that I did in the past or a bad thing I did in the past, I'm not going to have such a firm grip on the past that I stop reaching for the future, which is why we showed that YouTube video at the very beginning of the message of the dad that wouldn't let go of the rope, and because of that, he felt there was safety in that rope. He's on a rope swing where the purpose is to let go and to get something better, which he was never going to realize.
Right. Speaking of video, I kind of got ahead of ourselves a little bit. That was an extremely powerful video that we used to kind of just introduce each week we've been introducing the idea of the prodigal story through various different ways, and that was just a powerful video. Talk about someone regretting things in their past, but then also having this, what we were talking about yesterday, this awakening to hope or awakening to help, and making this choice to get help. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, Chris, we got a chance to see the video. We previewed it before we showed it, obviously, and the first time I saw it, it was very powerful, it was very emotional, and yet even watching it for probably the third and fourth times yesterday in each service, Each time I watch it, there was a moment where the girl returns and she finds her way home, and she's not sure her family's going to be there. And when she finally sees her family, and she just, all you see is her mouth the words "mom." Mm-hmm. And literally both times I saw that, like tears started flowing in both services.
Right.
Probably the most powerful video I've ever seen in a church setting like that.
Yeah, it really is. And by the way, some of you were asking about, could we share the video? We really can't do that, but I do want to give a big shout out. That's actually a local production company that shot that video. They're called Journey Box Media. They're out of Lakeland. They do some phenomenal work. In fact, if you kind of you thought you recognized Skylines in the video, you probably did, because a lot of this was shot in Tampa. So,
yeah.
So anyway, big shout out to them. We are constantly using their stuff. So, anyway, we were talking about this idea of awakening to help, that ultimately, we talked about these other awakenings, awakening to longing and awakening to regret, and that ultimately part of our regret leads us to this realization that we need help. And sometimes we go looking for that help in all the wrong places, but then sometimes we finally reach that point and we realize that if I'm going to get any real help, it has to come from God. So I say all that to say this, sometimes when we turn to God, we have in our mind how he should help us. But sometimes that's not how he helps us. He kind of does it in a surprising way. Can you think of a time in your life where that happened, and just share that with us?
Chris, first of all, it's a great question. I think first of all, the awakening to help is difficult for us because we're Americans.
Right.
We like to do things.
Yeah, we're supposed to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and do our own thing.
And we've seen that. We've seen that in our culture in recent history of people helping out with hurricane recovery and stuff. Even when things are difficult, we have a tendency to pull ourselves up. And so for us to ask for help is a difficult thing. I don't think many of us like to ask for help. And yet we get to spots in our life where we know that we can't do it on our own. We know there are things that are beyond our capacity. And especially if we start to develop a relationship with Christ, we start to say, God, I realize I need to cry out for help. And it's those big moments in life that I think we become most keenly aware of that. For me, I can remember when Beth and I were first married, we went through what most young couples go through, and you get the honeymoon phase, and you're enjoying being out on your own and getting to know each other. And so there's a period of time where you're making discussions about what family is going to look like. And so we kind of decided we're going to wait a couple years until the topic of kids is going to come up, but inevitably it did. And so at that point we started to pray, saying, God, we believe we're ready to take that next step. And what does that look like for us? And we thought we knew. Like, we knew what, we both came from stable families, and we had, Beth had 3 brothers, and I had a brother, and we thought we're just going to go into what a traditional family looks like. And we started praying with the intent of, God, we know what this is supposed to look like. Now we need your help in getting there. And we soon discovered our prayer was off base. Probably a couple of months into that journey, I was just trying to discover, God, what is it, and why this and why that. I got a phone call. I was a youth pastor in Pinellas County, and I got a phone call one day at my office, and there was a mother of one of the girls in our youth group who was, and as actually her mom worked in the prison system in Pinellas County. And she just said, there's a lady in prison who's about to give birth to a son, and she has a couple of weeks left still on her prison sentence. Do you know anybody in the church that would take temporary custody of this young child? His name was going to be AJ. He hadn't been born yet, but his name was going to be AJ. And so we began making phone calls, thinking, I'll be able to find someone in the church willing to take this on. And we began making phone calls, but at the same time having a conversation with my wife about, there's no one home, it's 4th of July weekend, I'm having a hard time doing this, and should we be praying about taking this on ourselves? We've been praying about a family. This might be a different way to have a kind of a starter example of what it's going to be like to have a family. And it didn't take very long in that journey to, first of all, to realize we're supposed to help out this mother. So we took temporary custody of AJ a short time after he was born. It was midnight feedings. I remember sitting up with him watching ESPN and showing him the British Open highlights on TV and some different things in the middle of the night feedings. But it just really at that point opened up our heart that maybe the way that we've been praying all along wasn't where God was directing us. Was not at all our intent when we began this journey to become foster and eventually adoptive parents. But not only did God transition our heart towards our children that we have now, but it also gave us a passion to be advocates for adoption and helping out wherever we can. So one of those examples where we didn't anticipate it, that wasn't our prayer wasn't, God, help us discover what your plan is. It was, God, we have a plan, help us accomplish that plan.
That's often what we pray.
Yeah.
We pray, God, here's my 5 points. Can you work these all out?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, He's got 3 points that blow our minds. And
Changes
so
everything.
It really does. It really does. By the way, if you're in one of our groups, that question, be thinking about an answer to that question, because that question is going to be asked in your group probably this week. That idea of, when we've asked God for help, when has He kind of showed up and given us some help in ways that we didn't really expect.
Absolutely.
So be thinking about that answer for that. By the way, talking about group, JJ, I just had to ask you, one of the questions last week, we kind of all started out with this question is, what was a hairstyle or a clothing choice or a musical choice that you kind of regret now? And I wanted to know what your answer to that was.
First of all, I will say this: Milli Vanilli came up in our group. I didn't even mention that, but that can't. I only say where that came from.
Right.
But here's the thing in our group. First of all, shout out to my buddy Alan Tackett, because I have a feeling he's probably watching this, maybe even right now.
Right.
But when we started asking the question, I can't share his input, because what happens in group stays in group.
That's true.
But as soon as we started talking about like styles and looks and musical tastes, I'm like, I can't wait to hear how Alan's going to answer this question. So he had some remarkable things to say, which dated him a little bit. I love you, buddy, but it did, just being honest. But here's the thing: when it came, I was kind of sitting back hoping not to answer this question,
right?
Because most people,
sometimes when you ask the question, you feel like you can kind of back off.
I can ask people to answer the question.
Right.
I was hoping that was going to be the case, because for a lot of people, their answer was, well, I had a musical style or I had a fashion sense that was current with that time period, but I look back 20 years later and it was a bad time period for everybody, not just me. But for me, my answer, as soon as the question was asked, I knew my answer. Because back when I was entering my freshman year of high school, it was a moment where you're going to a new school and you got to try to impress people, whatever. I had gone to Dillard's the summer before, and I found what I thought was going to be the next style. They called them Galactic Wasp jeans.
Wow.
Now, most people have never heard of that because they didn't really take off. But basically what they were dark jeans that they'd take in. It looked like maybe taking a needle with bleach on it and put tiny dots like stars all over your jeans. And I was absolutely convinced that I was going to be the trendsetter to start this trend. Chris, it didn't happen.
And curious, like, how much of that set you back?
I don't even remember his mom and dad's time at that point, so I don't remember that much.
Yeah.
But Chris, I got to ask, because going back to you, that if you're going to ask me the question, I'm going to ask you, what about for yourself?
Well, I had to admit to my group that in my senior picture, I was definitely rocking the mullet. Seriously. And,
Chris, get out of here.
But I'll say this, I don't regret it, because it was pretty. I mean, I'm telling you, I'd comb it out just right. It was nice. Now, today, it'd be streaked with gray, and it would be kind of a mess. But,
Now, here's what I'm saying. Picture, or it didn't happen. Like I'm saying, next week on the mix,
all right.
we want to see a picture of that to show us just how pretty that was.
Josh, make a note of that, okay? Because, by the way, we mentioned Josh a lot in the mix. We haven't done that today, but another challenge for everybody this coming week. Josh needs a nickname as the executive producer. So if you have an idea for Josh's nickname as the executive producer of the mix,
that's right.
We want to hear it. Comment, put the comments in below. If you feel like you need to personally message it to us to protect your identity, you can do that as well. So, but we look forward to hearing from you about that.
I think it'd be great to put it in the comments. If you have a good one, we'd love to hear it in the comments, because then it is public. But if you kind of want to keep it secret, I understand. I had an idea, Chris, but mine was taken already. So that's kind of a backup. We'll get to that next week if we don't get one.
All right.
So,
all right. Well,
versus mullet, business in the front, party in the back.
now Josh has been back behind the scenes producing this whole thing. Josh, have we made any mistakes or anything that we forgot to add that we need to touch on?
I think y'all did great. Only thing to reference, and I don't think you made it. Can't remember if you made it clear or not. for the winner to email you for the Bloodhound Barbecue.
Yes.
They cannot already be signed up. If you're already
Okay.
signed up to go for the 20th, you don't count for the winning T-shirt. So.
That's right. If you're already signed up, I apologize, but this is to get some new people plugged in. We have a lot of people signed up. I don't want to give us, but we want some new people. It's been really cool to see some of the people signing up. I'm really excited about Bloodhound Barbecue, but absolutely, if you want to sign up, email me, jj@richpointchurch.org.
Not Josh.
Maybe that too.
All right. So anyway, that's the third installment of the mix. Hopefully you don't feel like you wasted your time today.
Not at all.
And we'll see you next week.